The future of HR in the digital age, spotlight on the banking industry. And I must say, for those of you who have not signed in October, that this is a continued conversation. However, we will bring you up to speed as to where we left the conversation previously, and we wish to continue with this conversation. So I am very privileged yet again and very grateful from the bottom of my heart for the speakers that are joining us today for the webinar. I am going to give each and every one of the speakers the opportunity to introduce themselves, to tell us where they are from, and to tell us why today they are joining us, and what is this, what about this topic make them excited, or are they passionate about. As we move along, we will have a discussion about what was said before, and refer those participants who didn't have the opportunity to listen to us before to listen to the recording. We'll refer to that, but we wish to continue our conversation within the banking sector, and the challenges as well as the opportunities facing the banking and insurance sector as far as the digital age is concerned. My name, ladies and gentlemen, is Linda Kutsia. I'm the director for Regenesys Nigeria, and I welcome you all to this webinar. Thank you so much for joining us, those online streaming, those in the box today. Thank you so much for joining us. Just to remind everybody, as a participant, you're more than welcome to ask your questions in the chat function or below the streaming function, as we will get back to your questions as we continue with the conversation. So thank you very much, everybody, and welcome to this session today. So I'm going to hand over to our esteemed panelists. Always a pleasure to see you all. Thank you so much for joining us. Let's see, who would like to introduce themselves first? Shall we start with you, Izuna? Spotlight. If you would like to introduce yourself, please. Thank you, sir.
Yes, greetings everyone in the house, in this room and in this meeting. I believe it's going to be an amazing time today. My name is Izuna Unjobi. I'm the MD CEO of REIT Investment Advisors Limited. I personally help ambitious people achieve their financial goals via investing in an environment that is motivating, intelligible, and transparent. The goal is to reduce financial stress so that focusing on what matters most becomes priority. Okay, I worked in various multinationals before I co-founded some various companies with some of my team. Worked in a real estate investment advisor firm in Switzerland, and also a real estate investment company in Dubai, an asset management firm also. I worked in an insurance company, WAPIC, I think is now Coronation Insurance. Also did some couple of years in Access Bank, and that is why I was able to gather a formidable team where we can start up a firm. And today I'm co-founding two very important companies that are contributing to the society and the economy at large. I welcome everybody once again, and pleased to have a wonderful conversation today.
Thank you very much, Izuna. Definitely something that I would like to delve into today is that spirit of entrepreneurship that you faced, and how do we encourage and motivate entrepreneurship within the Nigerian environment as well. So definitely something that I would like to lean on your experience and on your shoulders throughout today. So thank you very much for joining us. Thanks, Izuna. Dr. Aminu, if you would like to introduce yourself, thank you very much.
Oh, sure. Thank you very much. Thank you, everyone. My name is Aminu Ibrahim Gusau, PhD, MNI. I was Director of Administration and Human Resources with the Nigerian Railway Corporations for the entire reform of the NRC system. And then later on, I became the coordinating director, organizational support with the EFCC. And I was a lecturer of the University of Kansas for years, close to 10 years. And now I am a private citizen, I have my own, and again, currently I'm also a lecturer at the Sultan Machido Institute for Leadership, Peace and Development Studies at the University of Abuja. And I also head my organization, my company that I recently formed, Anhi Consultants International Limited. I think that's the brief I can say here, but I welcome every panelist, in this panel. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Amino. Again, something that or something that interests a lot of people, and specifically the South African audience today. Our NRC is definitely very strict and very strong when it comes to lending and loaning, and maybe it's something also that we need to start talking about. Because I told you this before, the microfinance industry in South Africa has got a lot to learn from you as a Nigerian entity, although this is not what we're focusing on today. But I would definitely like the opportunity to delve into that together with what Mr. Izuna is talking about, and which is entrepreneurship. How do we make sure that entrepreneurs have the access to funds that they need for startups? But maybe that would be a question that we get to a little bit later. So, Mr. Harrison, thank you so much, Dr. Amino, and you are most welcome.
Thank you.
Mr.
Sure.
Harrison, if you'd like to introduce yourself, please.
Hi, good morning, everyone. My name is Harrison, and I'm the Group CISO for First Bank Group. So I'm interesting, so by that I'm directly accountable for the security of the digital assets, including cyber, data information security, fraud management, and all that. And I'm also in charge of a workforce that is fully mobile in this, where you have witnessed high level attrition. So that's why this particular conversation is important to me. So we have within the IT space, most of us are aware that there are almost over 3 million cybersecurity jobs that are unfilled, not because there are no applications, but because the right people have not been found, that the right people are being sought for everywhere. Okay, so over 40% of recruitment today are not by application, is actually by isolation. So people get isolated and employed. So yes, I'm here to share some of my views in terms of what we're doing to be able to manage that, and some of the feedback we've provided to the HCR practitioners so that they can continue to change the style, the traditional style of recruitment and its traditional style of working. So I will be sharing as we move along, but in terms of introduction, I will stop here because of time. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Harrison. That's very valuable, and there's quite a few words that I heard in your introduction that I think is already mind blowing and groundbreaking, which is digital assets, human capital, yes, but digital assets. I wonder how far we go, and how far we think about that as an asset, which is what everyone should be looking at and everyone should be talking about. And what is a digital asset if it doesn't have a skill to back it up? And that's exactly what you were saying, and that's exactly where I hope our conversation will lead to today. Dr. Joyce, thank you. Thanks again, Harrison. Thanks for being here. Dr. Joyce, it's good to see you again. If you would like to introduce yourself.
All right. My name is Joyce Odiachi. I currently work with Cornerstone Insurance PLC as the Group Head Technical Operations, in charge of the subsidiaries of Takaful, Fin Insurance, and Cornerstone Insurance. It's a composite company for life and general business insurance. Today's topic is actually an interesting one. For me personally, I see it as an opportunity to push the HR a bit, to be a bit more agile, in terms of adopting and sort of seeing things from a different perspective of not just recruitment, but also actually development and retention of employees, especially in this current era where everything is turning around in terms of digitalization, in terms of the Japa syndrome, So I look forward to having a very interesting discourse. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yeah. What does it mean to be innovative within the digital age as an HR professional is something that we have to discuss, because that's where strategy can succeed or not succeed, because you need the people to implement it in order for it to be functional. So thank you very much for bringing that up, Joyce. Definitely a question that we need to start off with. Mr. Ekerete, hola. Please, if you would like to switch your camera on and introduce yourself to us. Welcome back, sir.
Linda.
Yes.
Good to be here again with you.
Yes, good to be here again.
Good afternoon to every other one that is here. Yeah, my name is Ekerete Olagamikon. I play principally in the insurance sector in Nigeria, and as it is today, I can say in other parts of the world too, because that's done online virtually, and we have these meetings all the time. So, well, today I understand we are talking about HR, and I've got a lot of issues with HR. Yeah, because I started my career as an HR person. So I got the, if you like, the rudiments, from Leadway Assurance, where I started my insurance career, and subsequently moved on to other places where I've also had the opportunity of being CEO. So sometimes when you see things happen in HR, you wonder, but thanks to digitization, thanks to technology, a lot of things have improved. And today we can see HR specialists sitting in positions of top level in the organization and making effective contribution to human capital development. However, like my sister Joyce said, they should have seen this syndrome like we have in Nigeria, where people are moving out of Nigeria to go and stay abroad. Why I say they should have seen it is they are interacting with people every day and interacting with developments in the environment. So that's one of the issues I'm gonna be tackling with them today, because I mean we all can complain, but HR should not complain about the fact that people are leaving. They ought to have seen it, and if they saw it, they ought to have done better than they are doing right now, joining the rest of us to complain that people are leaving. So I come from that angle, and I have a lot of ideas as to how this could have been done and how this can still be done. Talking from the outside looking in, but I look forward to an interesting conversation. I see the quality of other speakers, and I'm not afraid. Linda, you know what I mean? I'm not afraid, because I listened to Dr. Aminu introduce himself, and I was like, am I supposed to be here? Because with this quality of speakers, I'm certain that we'll come out with something that very, practical, something that will be very, global in nature in terms of implementation. We've got a lot of challenges, so I look forward to the conversations. Thank you so much. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you so much, Ekerete. And I think that is very, very important. One of the things that you said that I would like to highlight is that it takes many different minds in order to implement something pertinent and implement something that is going to be successful. We are practitioners, we are academics, we are, from different spectrums of the industry. We have different roles, and we experience this HR conundrum. Let's call it a challenge rather than anything else. We experience it on different levels, and together there's always a solution that we can come up with, and always a solution that we can suggest and have party in. So thank you very much for bringing that up again. Yes, and should you be, of course you should be. Your experience and the insight that you can share with us is always a pleasure. So welcome, and thank you so much for that. Then Dr. Agbula, I'm leaving you for last. Thank you, Mr. Kere. Dr. Agbula, can you hear us? Are you still there? Yes.
Yeah. Good afternoon, everyone. I greet all the leaders in the house, and good afternoon once again, Linda. My name is Ola Hagbola, a qualified and chartered insurance HR professional, a fellow of Nigerian History of Training and Development. I'm also a CIBS certified microfinance banker. My interest has been capacity building, especially for medium, small scale businesses. And I'm a trainer. I speak in conferences. My research interest has been in innovation, entrepreneurship, technology, microfinance, microinsurance, and I've been privileged to be involved in attracting talents to organization. Thank you for inviting me to this occasion. We hope to have a great time together.
Thank you very much, Dr. Agbula. We're looking forward to your insights and to how we can share knowledge and how we can share our experiences with the participants. As you know, our participants are from a wide spectrum. They are listening online as we are streaming online or streaming live online. So they are students, they are industry, they're from different industry, they are our corporate education students, so employed people. So a vast array of people listening in today and listening to our conversation, and how we are going to attempt to talk about the future of HR in the digital age within your banking and insurance industry. So maybe if it would be okay to start, if I could start off with a question today, and we can move forward with that. We have had a conversation before what the challenges were, how we overcame that challenges within the COVID, and how the COVID pandemic exposed our ability to think differently about our human capital, to think differently about our processes, to think differently about our employees. Those were conversations that we've had before. What I would like to continue with, and more than one of you have brought it up in your introductions as we move forward with this conversation, is to start off with just to frame our thoughts and to frame our ideas, and to start off the conversation is exactly that. What does HR agility look like in this digital age? What is required from HR? A lot of you said you want to bring HR to the party, and saying that it's a strategic position. What are you doing? What does succession look like? What does retention look like? What does the HR framework look like within this new age of ours, within the digital age? And as far as academics are concerned, Dr. Amina, you will know what I'm talking about, is that whole HR cycle. What are we talking about when we talk about HR cycle? What are we talking about when we talk about HR being strategic, HR being agile, HR being responsive to the human capital need of an organization? So many thoughts wrapped up in that final that initial statement of mine, and I was wondering if there was someone who would like to start off the conversation for us. Please don't switch off your cameras, ladies and gentlemen. Anyone who would like to start off the conversation for us.
Okay, maybe
Yes,
I
Harrison.
can start, then others can add. I
Sure.
would say basically the fundamental roles of HR have not drastically changed. It's in the how that role is performed that have seen even higher changes. Okay, if you take a typical HR, what does an organization do? Things like talent attraction. In some cases, the primary goal to be able to find talent and attract them. Okay. Another win would be employee productivity. How do I make sure that my cost to serve is optimized? That's key thing. Another one is employee satisfaction. How do I deal with things like composition, things like conflict management, things like segregation of duties, labor law issues? How do I make sure that people can be comfortable while working in an organization? Then you also look at employee retention. So retention is not just about composition. We also need to look at growth and be able to individualize aspirations. Okay, you may compensate me well, but I'm not growing. That can also be a problem. It may also be about how toxic the environment is. If the environment is toxic, then I may not be productive and I may not want to stay. Then also, there's also an indirect expectation from HR, which is cost optimization. You understand? Being able to support in optimizing the cost to serve, making sure that the talent are attracted, not with not expensive talent, but the appropriate talent are attracted. And if you take this, you may even be able to decompose it and categorize it into trend. And one of them will be to create staying power through a unique proposition, okay? To be able to align individual aspirations with organizational aspirations, okay? That is key for HR, especially in this day that people are now a bit more on how satisfied they are and not about how satisfied the organization is. So the KPI are now a dual KPI. So as you're rating me as an employee, I am also rating you as an organization, because everybody understands that as we speak, it's called an employee market, not an employer market. So talents are in short supply, so people can move at will. So in some cases, people have up to 5 offer letters and just arguing on which one they should take first. Then also, there's also this great differentiated experience. So work is no longer differentiated experience. Okay. So work is no longer something people travel to do and come back. Work is now a lifestyle. It's now what people do amidst other things that they still need to do. So people work from home, so it's a mesh that is happening. There's also that point on creating competitiveness, staying competitive. Even if your organization is paying well today, if every other organization in that industry starts paying better, even the economic scale, both micro and macro, remain the same, you are no longer competitive. Mm-hmm. So making sure that the organization is competitive is also part of the role of HR, because they stay at that onboarding and offboarding experience. There's another point, which is the experience, what I call the onboarding experience of an employee. So when I join and how I join the organization matters now. So it's no longer a time, for example, you call people for interview and for 5 hours they're waiting for you. to be able to address them. In the olden, prior to now, people say they're trying to test your resilience. They understand. They're watching you on camera to know whether you will, how you will respond, how you resist, and how resilient you are. But everybody's saying now, I don't have that kind of time. If you give me an 11 o'clock appointment, you can't keep me till 4. I'm not that idle. You understand? So all those, the how is what is changing. And what we are encouraging the ACMD team to do, or the HR team to do, is continue to get new knowledge, and in some cases unlearn what they already know in the traditional way of doing things, so that they can change. But again, I say the fundamental role of HR have not so drastically changed, even though they've been dragged into the strategic layer today. But the how they perform that role, how they measure productivity now matters more. Last point is, prior to now, productivity is, especially when we were doing on-site, where people travel to come to work. So you measure the time the person checked in, you measure the time checked out, you measure how much time the person spent at the coffee shop, and every other time the person spends on his system is concluded as productive. So you measure productiveness by presence and performance, okay? Or you measure performance by presence and productivity, okay? With remote working, flexible working, and all that time zone issues, now you have to measure productivity as productivity, so you can remove things like social goofing. So for HR that are core or used to the traditional ways of measuring productivity, this is a big shift for them, because most of them are asking, how do you measure whether the person working from home is actually working, because I can't see the person. So those are some of the things that are happening within the HR space, and I will give room for others to speak for now. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Harrison. Surely a lengthy introduction as to all the main issues that we need to consider as HR professionals, right? I would like to know if anyone else would like to respond to that, or would like to add to that before I give my 2 cents, start challenging some of the ideas. Anyone in the panel? Dr. Aminu?
Yes. Well, this is just my own take. Harrison, has made it very, very clear, and I learned a lot from what he has just said. He also mentioned that HR has not changed from its traditional obligation. The only thing I need to add is that HR is, in my opinion, is even yet, especially in Nigeria, yet to achieve.
Is it just me, or has Dr. Amina frozen?
What is goal supposed, on other issues. Sorry, can I continue?
Yes, please, Dr. Amina. Yes, just repeat your last statement.
Oh, no, what I said is that Harrison has said it all. But what I need to add, where he mentioned that, the traditional function of HR has not changed. So what I need to add here is that has never even achieved, not even close to achieving what it is aimed to achieve, especially HR in Nigeria, but very, very promising. Now, let's look at the entire role of, just like Mr. Harrison has really mentioned. To me, in any organization or on organizational development, the key to any organization development is the ability of the HR to be able to do its job. The inability from HR to do its job, hardly an organization can be able to develop, produce, achieve performance and stuff like that. Now, HR, one of the major things we really have to, when you look at human capital, is the training and retraining. Without training, hardly employees can be able to fully align and become well-informed in trying to understand what is the mission statement, let alone to know the vision, let alone to know the strategies to be adapted, to vision in order to achieve the mandate or the overall goal. Now, the responsibility of new staff coming into an organization lies on HR. For example, recruitment exercise. Is the responsibility of the HR to be sure that when those new young people are coming there, to really make them well-grounded, to be able to understand what the organization is all about and how they can be able to achieve. So those young people's progression from day one to probably up to exit by retirement or what have you is the role of HR. Then promotion also is the role of the HR. If there is anything that really excites an employee, is that ability to be sure that they are able to get their promotion. We sometimes say that, promotion is not a right, but the point is, if you look at it technically, definitely it's a right, because it really makes you, to perform better. So if they keep to that, then the discipline aspect of the entire organization lies in a unit within the HR. Now look at it, because what we are saying is that digitalization aspect of it. Now, all this can be well achieved through a new thinking, a continuous new thinking, continuous thinking outside the box on a digital directives, on HR. I knew, well, I'm adding experience here in one of the organizations when HR was one of the 8 units, under me. Those 8 units, they're all bringing their stuff. And at that time, we're working towards digitalization, but we had not achieved digitalization. So the point is, instead, you have other things to do, committees and what have you as the particular head or director, of that, but you'll be there now all the time, mechanically assigning file and stuff like that. And again, with digitalization, you'll be able to get efficiency, and HR maintains what is called high level of confidentiality, especially when you keep, those files for those people. One single mistake can destroy, an employee. So all this can be safeguarded, if we can get, a digitalized system in HR, to move it. I think I'll be talking more, on the, on HR more and more. But like I said, I don't want, like last time, to take all the time. So I think I would definitely stop here, just my little bit on what really my perception is on HR, especially as it relates, to digitalization as we're looking towards the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Aminu. I'm grateful for your answer. I just want to bring us back into the sphere again. Is what does HR agility then looks like? Because if I listen to both what you and Harrison said, you are talking about a lot of very important aspects. It's about productivity. It's about onboarding. The whole cycle of employment and employee. Which is certainly the responsibility of HR. Is it the responsibility of HR alone? We can discuss that. Because if you start handing over all of that only to HR becomes, like you said, overworked, doing many things, very strategic, but also very powerful. And it is a shared function, management really, and the management of people. That's how I understand business. So perhaps as we are continuing, what does it mean to be agile? And agile, let's have a look at the agility of HR within this age. What does it take? Many of the HR functions have been discussed. So maybe, Dr. Joyce, I see you've unmuted yourself. Would you like to add to that?
Yes, Linda. So responding specifically to your question, looking at exactly what we say is the future of HR within this space. For me, I would want to come from the point of view that HR's agility starts from themselves. Now, we've all heard about the expectations, but you see, the HR has the responsibility to manage management expectations in terms of skills. They also have that responsibility to manage employee expectations in terms of development. Who manages HR's expectations? So for HR to be able to fit into these two roles and meet the expectations of both the management and the employee in this current digital era, HR needs to also upskill. Now, research has shown clearly that most HR feel two ways. One, first of all, a bit threatened, thinking that digitalization may usurp their responsibilities. But it has also shown too that about 35 to 40% of HR professionals believe that, they agree rather that they've not really pushed into that sphere of digitalization. So the question now becomes, who brings them into that comfort zone of understanding what digitalization can do for them? We've talked about their normal traditional roles of onboarding, recruitment, and all that. Little things like that can easily be digitalized. I'm sure it's even been done. I'm sure Harrison can tell us a few things that has been done within that space. But now the other aspect of the HR portfolio, which is HR themselves upskilling themselves in preparation to be able to handle those staff, is where the agility comes in. It starts from them. Who pushes them through that route? Who explains to them the expectations? So when we're talking about digitalization for HR, for the group and all that, when organizations talk about transformation, digital transformation, this cannot be done without the HR. So the question here we should probably be asking ourselves, if HR is not transformed, how will HR transform the system? So I think that's where we should probably start the discussion and look at. And I think HR has a lot to do within this space, but we also need to understand, just like you said, they can't do it alone. There's a need for support to even bring them on board to the level, to the comfort zone where they even understand what exactly can be done. In terms of the performance management, in terms of the measurement of work and all that stuff, we know that the systems can do all this. But if the HR does not even understand how the system will measure these things, they probably would also have that problem of, my staff work remotely? How am I going to be able to monitor this? So when we speak about agility, it cuts across a lot. So it's not just for the organization, it's not just for the employee, but even for the HR person as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Joyce. I love bringing our attention back to the fact that HR is the middleman between employer and employee. And it's very, very important to manage that relationship the whole time, right? Because it's strategic. It's strategic in all the other functions, like you rightfully said, where all the other functions can be digitized. They're still a human. And we're still working with human expectation, which cannot be predicted through AI. Okay, Mr. Ekere, I see, Ekerete, I see your hand is up. I cannot wait to hear your feedback, to hear your response to what we've been talking about. So please, you have the floor.
Okay, thank you so much, Linda. So I've taken note that you have $10 on your site for me because you didn't get my name correctly.
Oh, right? You know? Are you sure it's dollars and not Naira? Can we make it Naira, please? Can we make it 10 Naira, please?
Okay, so I'll leave you to decide that. But you know, the thing we're discussing here is, to my mind, one, we cannot say that HR functions remain the same. Because the real issue that we are looking to address today has a lot to do with data. So who keeps the data of the people in the organization, in my view, is HR. So when you talk about agility, you know, I think you cannot become agile without having some fundamental information and data, you know, which resides with the HR. And so a lot of data that is required to take decisions now that HR is fully, you know, accepted at the strategic level is something that we need to look at critically. Because we have situations where you suddenly find out that an employee is to get the, I mean, to say the word that comes to my mind, is corrupt, becomes the issue of when he was engaged, was he corrupt or not? Is there a way of finding out? And going forward, something happens and you suddenly find out that the employee is involved. At what point did he become corrupt if he was not corrupt at the beginning? You know, in our different organizations today, the greatest challenge still has to do with weak corporate governance. And so when you look at it from that angle, you begin to imagine the work that HR has to do with the data that HR has to ensure that people who are coming in and who are moving into the strategic level are even people who should be there. Most of the time, we just look at CVs and look at which school the guy attended, where he has worked and all of that. And we say, oh, he's a great guy, he has achieved a lot of results. But the guy comes with his own agenda. How do you ensure that, that agenda does not compromise the organization? So for me, data and the way you use that data is very important in the conversation that we're having today. So that we know that, like they say, the root of the problem is the people. But the people cannot just be generalized. At certain levels, people have to be, carefully with the technology that we have today, assessed and be sure that this person, his behavior, his character, his competence can allow him to remain here, in a certain position. So I do think that we need to bring that into the conversation. Data and data management, data analysis from time to time. And the speed of data today is not one that you will say we will do it at the end of the month or at the end of the week. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Harrison, I see your hand is up. Is it a new hand?
Yes, just to
Sure.
just listened and wanted to make a reinforcement of my initial contribution. My initial contribution was not that HR will remain the same. My contribution is that the fundamental role of HR has not drastically changed, which is I mentioned as being able to attract talent, manage productivity, manage satisfaction, manage retention, and optimize costs. That had not fundamentally changed. But the way that is being done is what is changing. For example, before, I even mentioned that before, people check when you come into the office, the attendance time, the time you came in, how much time you spent at coffee shop, and when you close from work. If you try that today, it will be very deceptive. You understand? Because performance today is more on outcome basis. We agree on this. You deliver, you don't deliver, right? So it's the how. And when it comes to data, yes, data is very critical because today we support different functions to manage the data to be able to accurately measure performance of an employee wherever he or she is working from. Okay, so that is there. But like I said again, the fundamental role of the HR function has not drastically changed. They're still in the business of attracting, retaining, and managing talents. Now, you will also understand that today it's becoming more and more easier to leverage a community to be able to find the right candidates, okay? So there are platforms that are available today. So you have the LinkedIn and so many other platforms, which were not there before, which can enable HR people to search for, subscribe to, and be able to get feeds on certain kind of talents, including even pay expectations. So that part of work is already even being done. So with the right data feeds, HR organizations can on their own at their desk find the right candidate or matching candidate before even they start the recruitment process. So that's also there, but that just to help on that fundamental roles, okay? But again, I have not seen a drastic change where, for example, like in some other function where there has been a drastic change, not just in the core expectations or core deliverables, but even in the how those deliverables are being executed and achieved today. So many functions are changing as we speak. So many functions are being automated. So many functions, the dynamics of the functions are completely changing. Do you understand? If you look at the operations team, for example, the chief operations officer, the role is changing. Do you understand? It's no longer that person that manages desk-to-desk operations. It's now someone that is a bit more digital in assessing digital play for an organization. So that role in itself is going to be extinct at any point if it's not completely transformed. And there are other functions like that. The HR, the core role have not drastically changed, but how those core roles are performed is drastically changing. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Harrison. I think it's clear everybody understands where you're coming from when you say that the fundamental functions of HR has still stayed the same. However, it's been elevated, and it's been elevated within the digital age, and how that elevation impacts the organization is what we wish the conversation to continue as. Right, Izuna, would you like to add to that, sir? You're just starting your new business and know what it takes to be not just the CEO, but the CIO, the CFO, the HR, Chief Director, HR. Talk to us about your experience and your input as to where the conversation is moving towards at this stage.
Okay, the ability to and capacity of moving quickly, being responsive to what issues that are going on, being nimble and proactive effectively, I would say that is in HR, I would say that is a future-enabled skill. So as an HR personnel, you should have a third eye. Any HR personnel, they are supposed, in fact, they have another eye to be able to see into the future and bring what is into the future, bring it to present day reality. So I would say they should have an agile thinking. And this thinking is the adoption of digital technologies, such as the mobile phones that we are using today. I know what that mobile phones have helped mobile applications, I mean. I know how far it has gone. Someone mentioned linking. So talking about social media also and data analytics, it also helps us to build that agile mindset that will make us remain and stay in the competitive business or in the competitive markets, or in the competitive market in the HR system. So agile and critical thinking will help us to bring enabled solutions to the issues that we are facing. Mm-hmm. All the issues that everyone here have discussed about, like what Harrison said, that the HR has not drastically changed, but it is the roles that have changed. And the roles just need to change because of those futuristic thinking that we are bringing back to reality, so that we won't be left in the old of those traditional way of doing things, that we should unlearn those old way of doing things and bringing in those new and futuristic way of doing things. So I will stop here for now so that we can proceed with other issues.
So I hear what you are saying, is that HR needs to be in the future. That's another, or needs to think in the future, needs to think strategically, is what you are basically referring to, making an HR executive an executive, which is a strategic thinker and a strategic position within any organization, and reliant on growth, which is what Harrison is saying, and everyone is reiterating that, is that it's all about getting the productivity, getting the measuring the output of each and every employee. Which time of day they're doing it is not what concerns us. The fact is that there's the goal to be met, and that goal should be met. What I would like to add to that is that the HR function also talks about employee wellness, and none of us has spoken about that, right? Employee wellness, making sure that your employers, was Harrison, you started, was it Harrison? I just want to make sure, started with the aligning individual purpose with that of the organization. Is that not also part of employee wellness? Because we haven't spoken about that too, because it's part of social intelligence, right? And how do we do we measure that? Is it something that we can measure? Is it something that every employer every employee takes responsibility for. Dr. Akbula, you have been very quiet. If there's something that you would like to add to that, we needing to talk about purpose, needing to talk about employee wellness, needing to talk about, and something that Dr. Joyce also brought up. It's not just about the employee, but also about the HR professional.
Okay, yeah, thank you, Linda, and thanks to the various business leaders that have spoken. Well, to me, I would like to look at the future of HR from 3 different concepts.
Yes.
And these concepts are major driver of the currency and future of HR. And what are the concepts? 1, the people. 2, period. 3, performance. The people, the period in which we are, and the need for performance has changed the role and the future of HR.
Okay.
Now, by people, I mean that we now have diverse workforce.
Mm-hmm.
You have the silent, you have the boomers, you have the Gen X, you have the millennial, you have the Gen Z. Diverse people for human capital to manage. Because of this diversity and their diverse roles and needs, it has affected the role, the job, the responsibility, the function of human capital. So some of the new changes that we are currently experiencing from human capital was actually induced from the people they now have to manage.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the period also has greatly affected the performance of HR. The period in which we find ourselves is divided into 3. We have the Industrial Revolution, where people go to work only for survival. Then we later add Information Revolution, where people are looking for standard of living. But the current period of work that we find ourselves is a digital revolution, a social revolution, where these young ones are looking for social esteem, and they don't bother whether you want to fire them or not, because they're not looking for survival, they're not looking for standard of living. Their parents will provide them basic things of life. And so the way human capital had handled people in the era of industrial revolution is different from the way they had handled in the era of information and the way they currently handle in the era of digital revolution. And that is why you could hire workforce today and tomorrow they resign. But in the days of industrial revolution, you see them stay in an organization for 30 years, for 20 years, for 25 years. In the day of information revolution, they are looking for standard of living. They can stay for 5, 10. But today, jackpot syndrome. Once these young ones look at what you are doing in the organization and they see no future, they see no opportunity, they carry their bag and they move on. So it is no longer hire and fire. It is no longer command and control. It is no longer employers' market. It is now employees' market. And being an employee's market, you now need to listen to the demands of the employee. Their welfare is important. The compensation you are giving them is important. The ambience of the environment is important. Now, the third concept that have changed the future of HR is performance. In the past, in the Industrial Revolution, people will stay there activity-based. But today, it is outcome. Before it used to be input, now it is output. In the past, it used to be revenue. How much have you made? 380 billion. But now it is profit-based. So all these 3 concepts has changed drastically the role of HR. And HR who will succeed in this generation must be a driver. must be an innovator, must be a change agent, and must be a business partner. It's no longer personnel management that, oh, we hire you and we fire you. The workforce of today, they don't even care. The moment they feel they are not comfortable here, they carry their bag and move on. So the transformation we're having in HR, either in insurance, in banking, in financial service, or anywhere, is induced by the people, by the period, and by the performance requirements. I will allow the speakers to speak. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that, Dr. Agbola. I think it makes a lot of sense what you were saying, and I think it all interlinks with what you were saying, and I think it also describes the position that we are in as employers and employees, because we all part of that framework, whether you own your business or whether you work for a business owner, we're all part of that. And I think what you've mentioned it does talk about where we are in this conundrum that we are putting ourselves into and that we are part of. And they do all very link together, because diversity, having a diverse workforce, will assume, and this has been proven through research, will assume growth, because you have a variety of experiences to draw solutions from and to draw experiences from, which is a very, very human capital way of thinking about your employees, right? Which productivity will grow from. Yes, the time frame is something very special, because you still have people in your employee who were before the Industrial Revolution, who will look at a CV and saying that this person has left their job every year. That means that they are unreliable. Remember, that's how we used to think. Where now it's about opportunity, like you are saying, and saying that how do I ensure that I grow and that my welfare is taken care of, right? So I hear what you are saying, and how those three aspects, people, period, and performance, link towards one another. But that then again, which is something that you mentioned, Dr. Agbola, and as well as you, Izuna. We are talking about agility, but how does that agility look like? How does it look like? Shall I pick on someone, or would someone like to answer that question? Does it mean that we look at purpose? Does it mean that we address and create? Because that's what the digital age expects, right? It expects individual solutions, right? That's what our customers want, right? An individual experience with our banks, individual experience with our insurance, or insurance to be individualized. Surely our employees expect the same. Harrison?
Okay, I'll just share them first, then I'll give room for others. Okay, so when it comes to agility, it starts from how you were contacted, how nice the person is, and how fast that recruitment process is. Traditionally, some recruitment takes up to 2 years. 2 years. Some take 1 month. Some take 1 year. Okay, some are months. But people are beginning to say, if you want me for a job, in 1 year, I'll probably have been twice my value. So we can't keep discussing the same thing. Actually, I have turned down an offer because of the length of time it took. And I just rationalized that something must be wrong. Okay. But in terms of HCMD or HR, yeah, I think the key thing to be able to modelize and gain agility is for them to learn new things, okay? Learn new way of working. Because today, we have the digital workplace, we have the digital workforce. We cannot use a traditional HR to power them, okay? Because things have changed. But agility will be in the area of, first, to make sure that there's a strategic thinking behind it. So our recruitment is no longer ad hoc. It's not something one person wants a staff you go into the market. Another person wants a staff, you go into the market. So people are creating boot camps, and people are creating traps and trackers, okay? Meaning that if I have a pool of resources, I could have a pool of resources that I could pass. If I have 5 stages of recruitment, I can pass them through 3 stages, okay, and inform them that in a pool. So whenever I need something, I'll just move them to the 4th and the 5th stage. So I'm also using traps to say, okay, these are candidates of interest. Whenever I need something, I will go for them. But in the meantime, let me keep them. So there are social networks that offer you capability to trap or track an organization. But even when you now come into the organization, that's what we'll talk about when you're getting onboarded. How quickly things are being done. If I need leave, how long will it take for me to process leave? If I need a staff loan, if I have conflicts, how long does it take? If I need work tools, how long does it take? So agility, like you highlighted, LCMD cannot be isolated from the entire organization because it's just a component, okay? But agility also cannot be isolated to HR. You can't have an agile HR with an organization they're a bit laid back. That doesn't work. So when you join, how HR facilitates that agility, that organizational agility, will also impact the perception of the new hire, especially if that new hire is experienced, and especially if that experience is coming from another environment where things are done better.
Mm-hmm.
You understand? If the experience is coming from probably lower or a more laggard environment, in whatever you're doing may seem to be nice or seem to be acceptable. So yes, the agility is key in how performance is measured, how issues are resolved, how topics are discussed, and how organizations move from conception to actualization is very key. But again, HR cannot be in isolation. Organizational agility is also very fundamental. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Dr. Joyce, your hand is up.
Yes, Linda. So I just wanted to quickly chip in addition to everything that has been said.
Dr. Joyce, I don't know if it's just me. Maybe
when
if
we
you
talk
could just
about
move.
HR agility.
Dr. Joyce, if you could just move a little bit closer to your camera, your voice is not that audible.
Okay, can you hear me? Can you hear
That's
me
better.
better? Can you hear me better now?
Yes.
Okay, sorry about that. Okay, so
No problem.
I said, I just wanted to chip in and, to say that if we're looking at HR agility, it would be nice if we actually also, like I mentioned before, the angle of the HR, but also look at it in terms of
Dr. Joyce, we're losing you a little bit. I don't know if it's just me, Dr. Joyce. We lost you for a little bit there.
We talk about data-driven environment. Hello, can you hear me? Can you hear me now? Okay,
yes.
So we talk about data analysis as well. And I think it was mentioned earlier by one of the speakers too. We talked about HR being the custodian, most of the data. So we need to be looking at the HR agility, that angle, data-driven, experience-led, and business-focused. The HR balances both the employer's expectations as well as the employee's expectations. So there has to be that business focus. So what's the organizational acumen? What's the stakeholder management that we will be looking at within the space? You understand? So, and storytelling involved. We all know it's a given. I think it was Dr. Ola who mentioned the fact that it's no more hire and fire. So there has to be a storytelling around the retention, around the retention scope. How are we going to be keeping these people? What are we going to be using to engage them? What's the story we're going to be telling them? So that's basically my contribution. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Joyce. I think it very much also links to what Harrison is saying. You cannot have an agile HR in an environment that is not agile. So it is that links to one another. Dr. Amino, is your hand up?
Yes, my hand is
sorry,
up.
Dr. Akbola, your hand was up first, and then Dr. Amino.
No
Thank
problem.
you very much. Thank you, Dr. Akbola.
Yeah, thanks to the other speaker, and thanks for bringing up the concept of agility.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, it is now employees' market. And what human capital is doing or has been doing to ensure that their labor turnover is low is to respond quickly and effectively to the market changes and the challenges that is currently going on. Now, so much changes. The business requirements is changing, one. The employees' expectation is also changing. Now, the greatest of all is that the workplace has been disrupted. So human capital are left with no choice than to respond to those three things. Now, human capital will call you. How do you want to work? On-site, off-site, hybrid. Because the requirement of the business is changing. No longer 8 to 5 in most places. Now you can choose to work in any of the workstation if your company, if your organization has branches or outlets anywhere. Now you can leave Nigeria for Ghana to continue your work. So far, you are delivering on your outcome, on your output, on your profitability. Now, the jackpot syndrome has affected human capital so much that as they are managing exit of one staff, another one is turning out their letter. Now you see some organization, you see Cornerstone, you see Linkage, you see Leadway, they will now say no longer 8 to 5. You can come into work 2 days in a week or 3 days in a week. Now the business requirement has shifted to performance-based, no longer activities. Now you can also do hybrid work. Now you can also tell us how you want us to pay you. There are some other companies now that are also paying remuneration 2 times in a month. Now it's another ballgame to ask ourselves for, to tell ourselves how will they manage the compensation complexity. That's another story for another day. But a lot of them are responding because the board of directors and the management are also not finding it easy. Okay, imagine in the departments, all the 5 staff left, leaving the head of that department. The board will quickly, the manager will quickly summon the HOD and say, what is happening? Why are you driving them away? So they are responding with various digital tools, with various flexibility, innovation. Now, learning and development, you don't need to go to Harvard Business School. You don't need to go to London Business School in person now. You can stay here in the country and take a study. Linda is running a great school in Nigeria. You can take a study. So the agility is now in all areas: employee compensation, learning and development, promotion. Promotion too is no longer tenure based. You see organization now who will now do promotion on basis of what you've done. And it doesn't matter whether you met a particular employee in the company. No, it's no longer about you. So the approach now is one employee approach. It's no longer you batching employee together and making a corporate or a group demand. Is one employee approach. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Akbola. Dr. Amino, would you like to add to that?
Well, yes, I basically just want to when we are talking about this agility, you know, in an organization, to me, agility is the ability and capability of moving quickly, being responsive, being nimble, and proactive, effectively manage disruptions and change within an organization. Now, Dr. Ola have captured it all. Every aspect of what we have really mentioned as contained as the role of HR, you know, we look at it to see agility coming out of that. Let me cite an example here. There is what is called employee life cycle. Employee life cycle, every employee, be you self-employed, be you public, employed by public organizations, or even a private, you must go through those stages. Number one, discipline. That's the first stage. Number two, becoming a role model. Number three, become a coach. And number three, exit. Now, what I'm trying to say in terms of agility, we're talking, and I'm really 100% in line with Dr. Ola. It started, you know, from the beginning, you are more employed. There has to be a framework of HR because employee life cycle is the HR model. And that's from that time, you know, that well and coherent HR, you know, is there to be able to guide employees from discipline aspect of it, to understand what the organization is all about. What is this all out to achieve? What are the mission statements? What are the vision statements? What are the strategies that would be employed to help the vision to achieve what is needed? And then you jump, you know, even with the role modeling, you know, there are negative and positive role modeling styles. So it's checking all these, the models is the responsibility of the HR. Now, one thing probably we have not talked much here, and I'm buying Linda's, there's a phrase you mentioned, social intelligence, or we can say emotional intelligence. Now, leadership within the HR sector must definitely have leaders who understand this, have leaders who are really thinking digitally, how would they move the HR. So no matter what you do, without a leader, everyone in the 21st century leadership discussions, everyone is a leader within an organization. But HR leadership are the one to be able to maintain. Without leadership, we cannot achieve agility in HR. That's my take on this. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Amino. I hear what you were saying. I think there's a lot of concepts that you touched within within what you were saying. And what does it take to lead an organization, the human capital of an organization? One of the questions one of the questions that came up in my mind is HR or managing the human capital of an organization only HR's responsibility, or is it every manager in the organization's responsibility? There's so many questions again that is coming up here that I think people need to understand, and people meaning employee and employer need to understand. I love what you're saying regarding leadership. Yes, we are all leaders in our own right. If we choose to be that, if you choose to be the leader, because we still have employees and that is their choice. Employees who are only in the organization to for monetary reasons. They're there to earn a salary so that they can live their life outside of the work environment with purpose. So, which is one of the things that Harrison started talking about when Harrison said it is about purpose, and it's about aligning your purpose to the organization or living a purposeful life, and how that purpose is generated within the organization, whether it's linked to the strategy, whether it's linked to the vision, is individualized. And that is why I think HR does have a different role, because it has a role of individualization. So what you were talking about, role modeling, coaching, training and development, skilling, upskilling also refers to what HR needs, what every employee needs. And like Dr. Joyce said, that it is not just the employee, the expectations of the employees that you need to meet. It's the expectations of the employer that you need to meet too. And HR forever plays within the framework of that role. So it is with regret that I need to say, ladies and gentlemen, that we are again at a point where we need to give our final thoughts. I don't believe it. I really, this time thing is really against us when we do this webinar. So if I might ask, if you could please leave us your final thoughts to the audience. What should we take from this, and how do we move forward? What is the nugget? Again, the jewel that you would like the audience to have heard in the conversation that we had today. Who would like to start with their final thought? Yes, Harrison, thank you very much.
Yes, let me start because I have another session I have to join.
Thank you.
Right now, yeah. So on just final thought is to reemphasize that HR need to be a bit more strategic in their planning, study the changes, unlearn those conflicting knowledge, and build new knowledge that will be useful in now and in the future. They also need to focus more on continuous learning. By continuous learning for HCMD, again, let me say that in terms of attrition, HCMD is not insulated from attrition. They also experience attrition, in some cases at a very high rate. Okay, so continuous learning is key, and building capacities outside people is something that most people are beginning to focus on. So you build more, focus more on building processes, practices that are a bit more independent of people, so that one person. So things like key man risk can be dealt with. Okay. There's also the practice of healthy attrition, where HR is beginning to even promote people to lead, so that cultures can continuously be mixed in such a way that it works. Communication and recognition is key. Communication and recognition is key for everyone, including HCMD. Adaptation to technology is very key. So HR system also need to be driven by technology. You can't use manual process to support digital business. It becomes the what I call the latency point, where things are overly delayed. And they also need to help in building social capital. People need to work in an organization where they can proudly wear their ID cards anywhere or give out their cards anywhere. So promoting that brand and promoting the capital of the organization is also one of the fundamental roles of HCMD. And I think that in terms of parting parts, they should look at those things in addition to contributions from other panelists. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Harrison, and I acknowledge the fact that you need to leave. We are very grateful for your presence yet again. I will connect with you soon so that we can have a further, maybe lunch later. But thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you, everyone. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Harrison.
Right, thank you.
Final thought. Thank you so much. Final thoughts, Dr. Aminu?
Well, I just want to say that, my thoughts are, we need to understand, because right now there are so many problems associated, not only with the acceptance of HR, there is also the digitalization aspect of HR. There are so many issues. Now, to cite a quick example, in Nigeria here, there is what we call IPPIS. Is a HR model. It means Treasury Single Account Integrated Payroll and Personal Information System. Now, this is to ensure centralized payment of salaries, is convenient staff remuneration payment with minimal wastages. There are issues right now. Even the university, the ASU in Nigeria are not into that. The intention of this system is very good for the country. It will control, it will create a fiscal responsibility. However, there are other areas of the loophole of the system that people are capitalizing to make it not achieve the intent. So what I'm trying to say here is that in as much as we are advocating the digitalization as the main future, and that's the best thing to do to achieve efficiency in terms of proactiveness, then we also have to look at the areas of people not taking advantage of the loopholes of the system, you know, to make it unworkable. So that's all I think I have to say for now. But HR, to me, is wonderful. It's managing people, managing. I think Dr. Josie talked about diversity, managing diversity. Diversity, as a matter of fact, even not beyond when you are putting the stages of millenniums, the what have you. But then again, you come here, men and women, older and younger, and stuff like that. You know, with tribes, different tribes. So anytime HR is looking diversity as a strength in an organizational setting, so no doubt, because HR cannot achieve what it intends to. You ask that question of collaboration, it must collaborate with every department because they are human capital. Human capital belongs to all the departments. So no departments, no hierarchy, whether junior or senior, everyone must do his or her own to make the HR work. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Amina. Ekerete, I see that your hand is up. Sir, Ola?
Thank you very much. I would like to give my closing remarks
please,
like this. One, I didn't quite contribute to the issue of agility because as far as I know, it's a technology issue. That's the way I see it. Getting things to be done faster, getting things to be done, you know, nimble and all of that. That's where technology comes in. And those that have studied it have shown that indeed it's a technology-driven issue. So the second part of my closing remarks is this. From what we have discussed so far, I do think there's a need for us to consider having a tech-driven HR so that even the HR specialists will understand that they need to rely a lot more on technology to be proactive and guide the organization in terms of the behavior of people. You know, we've talked about discipline, we've talked about communication and all of that. There is a need to then have, you know, that aspect of HR which continues to manage people, you know, not using technology per se, but, you know, touching people to give them a feeling of we are here for you. Mm-hmm. Because when the organization takes a decision on what to do about people, usually have three sets of people. Those who have heard it correctly, and those who have heard what was not said, and those who have heard what was never even considered. Because the information as it flows, you know, these days, when you read it, there are people who understand it differently based on what their own expectations are. So there's a need to follow up and clarify. Did you get that information? What was your take? Especially when these people are not heads of departments, you know, mm-hmm. Because when they're not heads of departments, they're not in meetings where they can communicate their feelings and things like that. So HR has to now maintain that touch with people and let people know that they are indeed in touch. There are some people that may never have heard from HR since they joined the organization. You know, so it has to be deliberate, intentional for you to say, okay, I will speak with the people in Kenya today and get a feeling of what's going on there, you know, mm-hmm. and scheduled in that manner. So that human touch is still necessary. The last thing I would like to say is let HR specialists also see themselves not as people who have gotten to the peak of their career by just being HR specialists and gathering all the certificates globally. And, you know, the real issue is, for me, I would like to see more HR people in CEOs positions, especially at this time, because the CEOs that we have that are not HR inclined, some of them actually still see HR as a button that they will press, call for opinion, and oh, thank you very much, and they leave. You know, so we need to see a lot more HR people in CEOs positions, especially in the banking and insurance sectors, so that we can begin to see the social intelligence and all of what you are talking about happening. It's not the same thing when the HR person goes into the room to tell the CEO, this is what I think we should do. The CEO has a mind of his own, and he has other sources of getting information and all of that. So, permit me to drop my microphone at this point and say thank you very much for the opportunity you have given me to contribute to this conversation.
Thank you very much, Ekere. And I think you're right in that maybe not HR in CEO's positions, but the CEO understanding the importance of HR and understanding the real strategic function of an HR person. Because, yeah, if you were only focused on the business part thereof, it would mean that why would I employ a strategic HR manager as director if I can have a system where I press a button and everything will happen for me? If that is all that HR is about, you're missing the point completely. Dr. Joyce, if you'd like to give us your final thoughts there.
All right, Linda, interesting conversation. So for me, I think I would like to leave us with the thoughts that it should be more of a workforce of one kind of approach. You know, so we look at it from this perspective that is more than one person differently, you know, so a workforce of one, which will involve creating strategic people practices, all right, and whole system, and having the HR growing within their, you know, digital skills, literacy, you understand, and like I mentioned earlier, the stakeholder management. I think overall it will give us a much more better perspective around the whole HR workforce in the digital era. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Joyce. Thank you so much for that. Izuna, if you would like to give us your final thought, please.
Yes, I've actually been having a very unstable network here, but I've been trying to reconnect, and my parting take here is boils down to learning. I'm here to speak, but I discovered that I've actually been learning, and the amount of knowledge and information I've gotten today, I think is going to catapult me to the next and higher level, both the company, my executive position, and that of the HR. So I would say learning how to learn is the most important skill ever to get. And as an HR personnel, we have to develop a learning mindset, keep developing it, be an agile thinker, think more in the way of technology, futuristic thinkers, learning to listen to others, why they contribute their own take, and also asking for feedback and using that feedback that you got to get and acquire more results in your endeavors. And we have to be very proactive as HRs when it comes to technology, because technology in this age is digital and is going to take us to the next and higher level. I would mute the mic here and say thank you, Linda, and every other speakers I've learned from for today. And we hope to speak with you guys sometime in the future. Thanks.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Izuna. I really appreciate that. Continuous learning is a human desire that we need to ignite in each and every employee that we come across, whether you are the employer, the employee, the team member, the manager, the director, the junior manager. I think that is essential. Look at how far we've come in an hour and a half, just having a conversation in a respectful manner with one another, where our purpose were guided. We had a focus that we needed to work towards. If we can do it, right? How much more effective can it be within an organization with people who have a common goal? Dr. Agbola, now I'm handing over to you to give us the final note. I'm so sorry to put you on the spot like that. If you would like to give us your final nugget. I know that we have less than 30 seconds left, but sir, if you would like to do that for us, please.
Yeah, thank you, Linda, and thanks to every speaker. For me, the future of HR is about business partnership. HR people must be business partner to the board, to the management, and to the employee. As much as I believe in adoption of technology and digital tools, HR must not put tools and technology over and above the people. The people are very important, very critical to employees' performance. Mm-hmm. Like my Oga said, that wishing and hoping that one day we'll see human capital becoming CEO of insurance companies and banks. That may be made possible when HR people begin to see themselves as not HR, but as a business partner, meaning that their approaches must be transformational. They must be creative and they must be innovative. Thank you for having me, Linda, and thanks to all the speakers. I've learned so much. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Dr. Agbola. Thanks for finishing or giving us those final thoughts and bringing everything together. Ladies and gentlemen, yes, I'm stealing again. I'm stealing your time. I've stolen a whole minute of your time already, going over time with this webinar, which I apologize for again. But ladies and gentlemen, let me just say again, thank you very, very much for adding value and adding value at the level that you've added value for this webinar. Again, I again think that there's too much that we still need to reach and too much that we still need to allow others to learn from you. So I'm very, very grateful for your time again. I would like to wish you and your family a very, very peaceful festive season as we are moving in towards. This is the last webinar that we're having for 2022. Please, we are going to full blast in 2023 and having very exciting programs as well. But I will connect with you. I will share everything for participants out there. We will go public with our events calendar 2023 very soon. And I'm very grateful for those participants, for everyone who is involved here today, and for the whole sector who's been so gracious in sharing your thoughts and your experience with us, the listeners, as well as with the participants. I thank you from the bottom of my heart yet again for your time. What a pleasure to listen to all of you. Thank you very much, everybody. Have a blessed afternoon.
Thank you so much, Linda.
Thank you.
Sure.